my decision not to turn myself in ended up proving to be a bad idea. So anyway, so I go through the system, and I'll never forget, as a young man in the courtroom, my judge said in open court in front of all my family, for everybody to hear, this big kid deserved to have a needle stuck in his arm. Oh. And my mom, my family, all the people that I love and supported me, they had to hear that.
Wow.
And it broke my heart, because that began a pattern for me to believe in my mind that I was worthless. And so here I was, never been in trouble in my whole life, was looking at 80 years, had to go to prison. And my goodbye in the courtroom was, my judge said that you would never, and I say this for all the people who have no hope, he said you would never get out of prison. You spend the rest of your life in prison. And I believe that. My belief, this is my belief, that a transformed life is the greatest miracle that God could ever put here. It's bigger than cancer. It's bigger than all the diseases that could heal one person, because a transformed life allows the opportunity for a husband to transform his family. That family transform a church, and that church a community, and that community a nation. And so now this is bigger than, from Genesis to Revelation, it's all about family. This is God's idea. He took Abram and he said, I'm going to take you and I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing. And because of you and your family and your obedience, you will become a father of nations. And men in prison, if you want to do something or be something, start walking to that right now. Don't wait till you get out. Because if you wait to get out, back you go.
That's right.
So that's my encouragement, man. Go for it. Dream out loud. Live it.
Welcome back to the Get Back Podcast. I'm Zeke Pike. I'm here with my co-host Greg Kelly, and today we got a pretty incredible guest that I'm super excited to hear about.
Yeah, today we have a guy who is great friend of mine. Met him in the most unconventional of ways. I feel like everyone we've had on this podcast so far have been somebody we've either come across social media, met through a mutual friend, or in a really weird way, I met this man in prison. I was never supposed to be there. He was. But who I know of him now, people have told me who he's been before, when he first went in, to who he is now. I know who he is now, and he's a man after God's own heart. He's a husband. He's a father. He's a business owner. When I think about, when people have told me and when he's told me how much time he's done, I think back on my head. I've been there and I only did 3 years. This guy has done 10x that consecutively, been on multiple units. I've been in different decades, different eras of the prison system, from the race wars where it was very violent to when things chilled down a little bit, to when, our country got attacked in 9/11 and to, 2010, and right around when COVID, right before COVID. I mean, you got released right around COVID, and you'll talk all about that. But man, we have Reggie Hicks, Big Hicks, on the Get Back podcast. It's a privilege, brother. Thank you for being here. Can't wait to hear your story. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. I'm excited myself, man. Thank you guys for inviting me to come share, because my story becomes his glory, and I like it. So I'm excited. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, man. Well, man, we want to talk about our new set here first. We get into, we got a new set. We changed up scenery a little bit.
I've got sunshine.
We got some sunshine. We got sunshine shining in my face right now. We are still working out the kinks. We're eventually going to probably get this all taken care of. But man, really glad to be here. Really glad to have Reggie here. I want you to go ahead and just start with the very beginning, man. Tell us who you are, where you grew up, family life, sports, your childhood growing up. Where does that start?
Yeah, man. So my name's Reggie Hicks. Of course, I'm 52 years old. I was actually born and raised in Houston, Texas, and grew up in a 2-parent home. Really cool. My father had a very strict religious background. So, and my mom, of course, grew up in the church. So we were raised in the church. Even if mom and dad didn't go, we went to church. And so, man, just such a really cool background. And I remember at about 6 years old, we played street ball, baseball in the street, which you don't see very much of today. But I hit a ball and I broke a window. And my mom wanted to beat me. And she told my dad, you got a choice. I'm going to beat him or you take him to the park so they could play baseball. And so it kind of began baseball for me as a 6-year-old back in 1978. And we went to the park, we started playing ball, and just kind of took off. I grew to love baseball. I found something that I was good at, something that I love to do, and it connected me with some really cool people and gave me a lot of opportunities in my life. And so going through elementary and junior high and high school, that became my identity. And I stress that because oftentimes we will allow what we do to become our identity as opposed to who we are. And so anyway, and I was just lost in my identity, had great opportunities, played in a Little League World Series championships. I got to travel the world a bit. I was very mature on the field. I was able to compete, but I was very immature off the court, off the field. And so anyway, by my junior year, 15 years old, I had scholarships from all over the country. My senior year, I'd been able to try for the Kansas City Royals, the Houston Astros, the Philadelphia Phillies. I got an opportunity to do a lot of cool stuff. So by the time I graduated, I decided to go to junior college for 1 year, San Jack, which to play for the legendary coach Wayne Graham, who took San Jack to many World Series and who also took Rice to several World Series. So anyway, and so for the first time in my life, you know, I didn't have head and shoulders. You know, on some levels, we head and shoulders as far as talent-wise. But, you know, I encourage kids now that when you go to the next level, everybody have talent. You know, who's going to work hard, who's more committed. And I didn't have that. And so for the first time, I go into this situation with all this talent. Of course, Andy Pettitte was a pitcher there. He wasn't as good as he is now. And so you walk onto the field and you think, I got it. And for the first time, I experienced defeat. You know, I wasn't, when the list came out for the players to be picked to suit up, my name wasn't on the list. And man, I just didn't really know what to do, where to go. And of course, I had a car accident, and so I had to sit out my first year. Anyway, and so that kind of became the beginning of my downfall. Here I was embarrassed. I felt I was head and shoulders above all my friends that I grew up with. These guys were playing D1 baseball. Some had been drafted right out of high school, got Corvettes, and they living their dream. And here I was rejected by one of the best coaches in the world, and of course the Rec. And so I kind of distanced myself from all the successful people and kind of found some people I kind of fit in with, you know. They wasn't doing that in life. Hey, me either. And so I became kind of a celebrity, to the outcast. And it was kind of fun for me, you know. I felt like I'm cool here. So anyway, and that kind of led to a bad choice. I take total responsibility, hold myself accountable for every choice that I made in my life. But I just want to reiterate, a lot of times we forget a choice lead to another choice and another choice. And it was my choice to take myself out of the social circle that I was in and put myself there, and it kind of became my downfall. So anyway, so my mom and dad decided to divorce after 21 years, and that was a challenge for me. My mom and dad, I mean, we done date night, family nights as families, everything we done as a family, the whole unit, the structure of everything we done. We went on vacations every year. And so that was tough. Looking back, I understand that was a trauma for me. Of course, at that age, 14 years old, 15 years old, I didn't really understand, but it was a trauma for me. And so my mom and dad divorced for whatever reason. I love my dad, who is still good to me. He just turned 80 this year. Shout out to my dad. But anyway, my mom went home to be with the Lord 6 years ago. So that was the second trauma for me. I was talking to you this morning, Zeke, man. It's a tough subject for many of us. And I've never ever said this on camera, but as a young kid, someone that was extremely close to me did molest me as a boy, and it was a male. And so that was a stigma and a trauma that I carried with me for years. You don't really want to talk about it, right? Like, I'm not gay, you know what I'm saying? And so this situation, I kind of shared what happened with somebody I cared with, and it was kind of like, boy, you crazy. Ain't no way. And in my culture, molestation doesn't happen, you know? In the Black culture, that's not what we do. But if it's not as rampant, it's even more in our culture. So anyway, I kind of felt like the people that I cared most about maybe didn't protect me or didn't believe me, even worse. And so I just kind of stuffed it in the back of my mind, and so that was another trauma that I had. But anyway, man, just a great family environment on my mom's side. Man, we celebrated everything: Christmas, Easter, St. Patrick's Day, Valentine's Day. It didn't matter. We just looked forward to being a family, you know.
Yeah.
And growing up, I guess with my head full of myself, you kind of take that for granted, you know.
Yeah.
And looking back, dude, that ended up being what saved me and gave me hope throughout my situation. So yeah, I mean, I grew up a regular kid in a great community, great neighborhood. The older guys knew that I was passionate about baseball. I was ambitious. And so even when things started happening around me, I'd try to go to the club or hang out with the big guys with the trucks and the low riders. They'd be like, boy, go home, boy. Yeah, you can't hang with us, you know. Yeah. So I'm grateful for that also. So, I mean, just one bad choice led to, a great change for my life.
Yeah. Yeah. What, growing up with such high esteem, growing up with so many opportunities, you know, it seemed like earlier on in your childhood, you're just like that all-American kid who just loved playing sports, great family life. Divorce seems becoming more prevalent nowadays. And I'm sure there's a lot of factors to all that, but it sucks because it is traumatizing for a child. That's something my parents were never divorced, but something I've always looked at from the outside looking in is how much trauma that actually does to a child, because, you know, I love seeing my mom and dad being affectionate with each other, right? I feel like it's overflowed in how I am with my wife now, but to see that absent in a household, I'm sure it was devastating, you know? And, you know, I've got to meet you in prison, and I know what you went to prison for. And you were talking about that one choice and the ripple effects it has to derailing your life, to completely altering, in some words, what we think is alteration of our life. But then again, you know, we aren't the author and finisher of our own faith.
Right.
God always has a plan. And, you know, as I see you now, and I try to help but think, like, you know, I don't want to say it was in the cards, but I know who you are now, and I'm grateful for you being here now. But that one bad choice you made in your life, I want you to take us down that and what that's done for you, and how the consequences you've had to face on that.
Yeah. So it was in 1989, 90, and I had this wise. I decided to go out and have some fun with two good friends of mine who I thought was family, not family members, but, you know, I thought pretty cool. We're going to go out. We're just having fun. And so we do this a couple of nights, and one night we go out and a situation occurred. And so I felt it was a self-defense situation. So an argument or altercation ensued with one of my friends. And the victim pulled out a weapon and he ended up getting shot once. And of course, we know in Texas, there's a law of parties. If you're there, you're there.
Yeah.
And so I take complete responsibility and accountability for that. But that one choice, and the decision to not turn myself in that night, I think set course for the next 30 years. I ended up going to jail. One of my fall partners got into another issue and, turned state evidence. So they came and got me. It was supposed to be that way anyway. I should have turned myself in. It didn't happen. Even the district attorney said that if I'd have turned myself in after it happened, I probably would have done 4 or 5 years max. I've never been in trouble, never been a juvenile, never had no issues, don't drink, no substance abuse, none of that was there. But my decision not to turn myself in ended up proving to be a bad idea. So anyway, I go through the system. After 3 years and 11 months in the county jail, fight my case, going back and forward, getting offered plea bargains, turned them down. I went and fought my case in court. I actually took the stand, took accountability and responsibility for what happened. Just my story wasn't how I feel like it happened, that the courts portrayed. Long story short, I was given an 80-year sentence. And I'll never forget, as a young man in the courtroom, my judge said in open court in front of all my family, for everybody to hear, that he asked the district attorney, he said, "Hey, why you didn't get the death penalty for this guy?" And I'm thinking to myself, I had a murder case, but it wasn't capital murder.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even eligible for the death penalty. And then the judge said, this big kid deserved to have a needle stuck in his arm. Okay. And my mom, my family, all the people that I love and supported me, they had to hear that.
Wow.
And it broke my heart, because that began a pattern for me to believe in my mind that I was worthless. I mean, I was a horrible person. Everything that my mom and dad instilled, all the moral compass, all the integrity and everything that my parents started to pour into my life went out the window. Yeah. Right then, I felt like I'm the lowest scum in the whole wide world. Now, while I carry a lot of remorse for what happened, it's not one day that goes by that I don't think about the victim, his family, how it affected him. The victim ended up being a person that grew up with my mom and my family. So that was tough, man, going to court, and my mom and my grandmother, my family was like, "I know this lady." And I'm like, dude. So anyway, so the remorse is there, but remorse is a little different from allowing the shame and everything to cause you to lose who you are.
Yeah.
And so here I was, never been in trouble in my whole life, was looking at 80 years, had to go to prison. And my goodbye in the courtroom was my judge said that you would never, and I say this for all the people who have no hope, he said you would never get out of prison. You spend the rest of your life in prison. And I believe that. I believe that.
Yeah.
And so I'm put on a chain bus, transferred to Huntsville, and was introduced to this whole different culture. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know how to speak the language. In 1990, you go into Texas prisons, and there's violence, there's extortion, homosexuality, rape. Even on some units in Texas, people don't talk about it anymore. But even still, right now, in Texas prisons, you have black benches and white benches and Hispanic benches, and you have all these different gangs and street gangs and families, who claim benches.
Yeah.
And for me, a person who was considered a solo guy, wasn't gang related and wasn't into all the culture of Texas prisons, you got one little bench, and you got to have a decent boxing game to sit down on the bench. If not, you sit on the floor, like the little, the ones, the turnouts or whatever they call it. And it was tough. That wasn't who I was raised up to be. I was strong enough. I was physical enough to fight and to take care of myself in prison. But I didn't want to go about doing that. That's not the way I wanted to live. I thought it was inhumane and barbaric. Yeah. So I go in the day room, and I watch and see all the violence that was prevalent And then I had to go in my cell every single night. In a shame, I would turn my face to the wall. And at first, I would cry myself to sleep thinking, what in the hell happened? How did I get here? And then after a while, when I became a part of the culture, and then I started speaking the language and I became violent and I wanted to fight, I was going to be respected. I wasn't giving up my sexuality in prison. I wasn't a little 9 or 10-year-old kid no more.
Yeah.
I was protecting that. And so I'd fight and do whatever it took for it. And that's just the reality. Yeah. That was my reality that I thrust myself in as a result of my choice. And I wasn't going to pay protection. I just wasn't going to pay protection. And so what did I do? I fought. And when I fought, I wanted it to mean something. I wanted to make a statement because I wasn't going to be bullied, extorted, none of those things. And so you justify it in the very beginning and you say, this is why I done it. But over time, that part of you, it just dies. And so maybe 3 or 4 years into my prison sentence, I wake up and I don't even know who I am anymore. You know, I became the predator. I became the one that was extorting people and making people pay me for protection. I was the one that was moving contraband and illegal cell phones and cigarettes and all the different things. I was the one bringing in the contraband pills for people to get big, the creatine and all these different things. I was the man. If you wanted cologne and you want to smell good, I was the man. You came to me. And you wake up and it was many days that I would go back into my cell and I think, who am I? I had no clue. We talked about baseball being my identity. Yeah. I didn't have baseball anymore. So now I'm in this culture that I don't speak the language. I have no identity. So I have to make up one.
Yeah.
And so we gain alias names. And in prison, you want your alias name to kind of define who you are. You know what I'm saying? And so I gave myself an alias name, and that's who I became. And before you know it, where I used to go in my cell, face the window or the wall and cry, making sure my cellie didn't hear me, now it was no more tears. And for 15 years, my heart was so hard and heavy, no more tears. I couldn't cry if I wanted to. I didn't even know how to cry anymore. I didn't know how to feel.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, even though I thought that I'd spend the rest of my life in prison for sure, the upbringing of my family, my mom and dad continued to support me. I have 2 beautiful aunts and an uncle who supported me and encouraged me. And the memories, man, so again, I took a lot of things for granted growing up.
Yeah.
The way we vibed as a family, the way we were all always together, the love and everything that they poured inside of me, I took it for granted. But in this place, all of those things meant everything to me. And so when I thought about wilding out, doing something, making a move, okay, this guy disrespected me, so let me go get a shank, go get a knife and make a decision because I ain't going to let him. I always thought about if I get more time, I'm already in a situation where I didn't believe that I'd get out. But if I do that, I know that I'll never get out of this place. And so, man, it was tough. It was tough. And so the culture was as it was. In the 90s, unfortunately, in Texas prison, the people who were paid to protect you or to make sure that you were in a safe environment. I mean, TDC or Texas prison is taught as a place where you go be rehabilitated and you come out better than you are. Unfortunately, in some of the units that I was on, that wasn't the case. The people that were there to protect you or make sure you're in a safe environment, they were paying to see who would win fights. I was shipped to what is called now the Pulaski unit, where they housed death row in Livingston, Texas. Initially, when it opened in 1993, it was called the terror unit. And so, because I got into a fight at intake with an officer, of course, they sent me to the worst unit in the prison. And that was not good. Now, here I am, thrust into a culture I don't understand, in the most violent unit in Texas prisons. And I had to deal. The first year, that's 12 months, 42 people were killed on that unit. I had to witness 6 people dying. Like my situation, I mean, again, that was a situation I felt I was forced to do.
Yeah.
That didn't define who I was. My point. Obviously, I've done it again, responsibility, accountability. But so now I have to see this. There's times I'd be playing dominoes and blood would be all over me because the guy next to me got a hit on him from somebody else, and you have to see that. And again, it just eat away on who you are, just watching this. And so for the first year, 42 people are killed, 7 right on my part. I mean, it just eating something inside of you, man. You know, I don't want to go in gory details, but it's some things just stick out. You know, I've seen people stabbed to death 84 times. I've seen people punched to death. Well, guys get backdoored or what they call hoe checking, and dude's just sitting at the table. He'd have fought 8 or 9 people back to back. He's tired. Somebody come behind him, hit him in his throat. He goes out right on the floor. And so you watch these things, and so now it's like, okay, the judge said I'm not ever going to get out of this place. How do I want to go out? Do I want to go out like that?
Yeah.
No way. And so it's survival mode. And so anyway, man, it just began to eat away at me. And so I just became a part of the culture. I allowed it to change who I was. I allowed every external thing around me to change who I was in here. And that's tough to say, but it's just the truth.
You feel like, you know, you came in there with a soft heart, and I remember, I don't know if you've told me this. I've had many people told me this before. You know, when I went down in prison, I walked through that place really hoping nobody ever asked me what I was in there for, because I never associated myself with being somebody who was being painted a child molester or a pedophile. Like, I was actually doing the complete opposite. I wanted to tell people, specifically people like you and Thomas and people that were like really close to me, that I don't know why this is happening in my life, but right now I'm just trying to fight to prove that I didn't do this so I can go home. Like, I don't belong here. And one thing that Thomas told me, and you know Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas Law.
One thing that Thomas told me that would help me in this situation is not associate myself with anything in this place. That toilet's not my toilet, it's my crapper, right? That cell is not my home or the house. Like, going back to the house, that's what a lot of people would say when they're coming back from the rec yard or the chow hall or their job, going back to the house. He said, never call that the house. Then you'll associate that, and that'll become your home. And when it becomes your home, then you believe what the judge said. You're never going to go home. Yeah. Because that's your home. Like, you're never, this home that you have out here to hope to come home one day, it's never going to be a reality, because you're going to conform yourself to your new world you're about to step in. But here's the thing, is that you have to almost in some sense do it, or you're not going to survive. Yeah. Because that world is a world inside of a world. I mean, I remember, you know, you'd walk the rec yard, or you would go to church, and you would just look outside or the window, and you'd see the same sky and the same sun and the same moon that your family's looking at. And you see the same stars and the same clouds that your family's looking at. But you're in this world and they're in theirs. But you're seeing the exact same thing from 2 different worlds. Right. I would always think that. Like, that's the same moon that my girlfriend is looking at right now. But I'm stuck in this twilight zone, and she's in freedom. And so in order to survive that world, you have to, in some sense, adjust yourself and overcome your external stressors. But then those external stressors become your personality and your identity. Yeah. Because that's how a personality is created, right? It's how you react to your stressors. And so it's almost in a sense that you've had to become one way. And I'll go back to what I originally said is, I don't know if you told me this or Thomas, but I remember a bunch of people telling me this, is that, Greg, you're really blessed and fortunate that you did not come down here in the 90s. You really are. And I'm very fortunate that I didn't go to Vito, or I didn't go to Garza, or I didn't go to Ferguson, or I didn't go to Clemmings, or I didn't go to any of those gladiator units that you're describing, because you did, and you witnessed some of the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
Right? How was prison like when you first got in, and to more so in your seasoned time, whenever you had done a couple decades already?
Yeah. So it's funny, and I'll share this really quick. I'm not a tattoo guy, but I had this wonderful idea. Looking back, I feel like it was kind of prophetic, like it was divine. But so I had this wonderful idea. So I got the city of Houston tattooed on my back. I'm just tatted up big. And then in the front, I got a picture of a prison replica of guard towers and the barbed wire fence. And looking back, I understand that I was trapped between two worlds. And that was crazy. I didn't understand it then. I just thought, hey, man, you know what I'm saying? When I take my shirt off, this is what it is. I'm representing Houston. You know, I love Houston, and I'm in prison. But anyway, I mean, Greg, it's just it's just a challenge. Some of the names, I was on Cofield, which is one of the most deadly units. Even now, it's still a very dangerous unit. I was on Gaza West, where, I mean, it was just crazy. Of course, Terror Unit and Michael Unit, just so many units that were just known for their violence and contraband. And so it was a challenge for me. And I was just on this downward trajectory into just not knowing who I was. I would go to visitation and try to put on a good face for my parents. And I go back to my cell block and be Big Hicks, Big Freaky, you know, and
but it's totally different.
Totally different.
Yeah.
And then something happened. As a result of my bad choices, I was put in administrative segregation. And so for those that's watching that don't understand, in Texas prison, administrative segregation is where you put when you're deemed a security threat. And so I was placed in a 6x9 cell. I can literally stand in the middle and touch both sides. And for your visual, it's just a glorified bathroom. You have a toilet, you have a sink. You're lucky if one of them working. Both of them are never working. And you have a bunk bed. That's it. That's all you have. And you're banished. You're isolated to that for 23 hours a day. You may get 1 hour of recreation if they're not short of staff. If they're short of staff, you're not even getting that. You get a 5-minute shower if the officer's not having upset. But then usually you would threaten, hey, if you come out to go to shower, we'll come tear your house up. And I know you got some kind of contraband in there, pen or something you don't supposed to have. And so you decide, should I go take a shower or let these people tear my house up, or just take me a bird bath in the toilet?
Yeah.
And I know some people are thinking, toilet, inhumane. So for those that are watching, in prison, in most cases, the toilet is the most sacred place in a cell.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm finna gross some people out, but I have to be. So a toilet is clean consistently all the time. The sink and the toilet. You wash your clothes in the toilet and you cooked in the sink.
Contraband bleach, all that stuff.
And we can laugh about it now.
Yeah.
But the reality is this: my wife think I'm a nut. I can go and work a job in the morning, come home in the evening, be to work the business at night. And if I see something dirty in the house, I put my bag down and go to cleaning. It's like, she's like, but she didn't understand. And I've been out almost 5 years. I'm sharing this, but she didn't understand. In prison, if you had a cellmate and you were nasty, you either got beat up and put out of the house, or one day you go to work or wreck a child and you come back, all of your stuff is thrown over the run or out of the cell into the day room because you can't come in here. Now what? What are you going to do? And so if you use the restroom, you clean the toilet, you wipe the sink, and it was all day, every day. You had a toilet towel. I mean, that was usually when a cellie come in, it's an issue. Hey, man, that go the towel for the toilet, that go the towel for the sink. You know what I'm saying? Handle your business. If you defecate, you hit that toilet, you bleach it out, I mean, that was his thing. And so anyway, you brush your teeth, you squat down and you spit in the toilet. You don't spit in the sink. If you spit in the sink, you might get your head busted open. So that's the way I was. I'll never forget. I come home and the first night, my wife and our daughter, who's getting married in September, shout out to Adriana. Anyway, so I'm brushing my teeth, I'm squatting down and I'm spitting in the toilet. And she's looking, my wife, and they're looking at me and they're about to cry. No, literally. Hey, man, they're about to cry. And I'm brushing my teeth, spitting in them zinc. And I'm like, what's the problem? She's like, babe, you don't spit in the zinc. Spit in the toilet. And I looked at her and I was like, no, babe, you don't spit in the sink. And they felt sorry for me.
Right.
And that was my first understanding of what PTSD. With all respect to the military and all the guys who go and fight for our country and do everything that they can, prisoners have it. After 30 years, that's what I was experiencing. And that was my thing. Yeah. I didn't understand right then at that moment, it's okay to spit in the zinc. Run some water down it, wipe it out, but it's okay. So anyway, so all of these things began to form. You go take a shower, and while you're in the shower, you get soap, bleach, and you wash your boxes and your T-shirt. You get home and you're doing that, and your family like, hey, dude, we got a washing machine. You serious?
Yeah.
And so it may seem small. Like, I've been home almost 5 years, and I still eat too fast. And my wife be like, dude, slow down. Let's enjoy this. But I remember in prison, when you sat down after 3 minutes, that means you're done. It don't matter if you finish. You pick your tray up, you throw it in the scullery or the slop, and you get out of here. Right? And so these are things. But anyway, and so that led me to my situation. I go to AdSeg, and man, I get a letter from a woman. And I got to tell this. This is the greatest love story ever. You got to listen.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
So I get a letter from a lady that I have no clue. I ain't on no pen pal sites, none of this, dude. And this young lady, she's 11 years my junior, so yeah, young lady. Yeah, I got a hot wife. She's young. Don't hate. So anyway, so I get this letter, and she's talking about, hey, I got a mutual friend, and they told me about you, this and that. I wrote her back, and I said, hey, look. Thanks for writing me, but I don't do pen pal stuff. Stamps at the time was like 40, 48 cents a piece. And I'm like, I buy cheeseburgers with my stamp, baby. Don't even waste your time. I got to get my contraband. In the chow hall, they have the slop, and then you got somebody selling cheeseburgers, And so that's 2 stamps, man. I don't have time to waste, I'm on a little fixed income by my parents at the time. And so anyway, she wrote back, nah, I said, well, I'm not a lab rat. I don't need you coming writing me, trying to figure me out and this and that. She was working at a law firm at the time. So long story short, I said, hey, it was a Thursday. I wrote classification and put on my list as a friend. That Friday evening, they had approved it. And I said, if you really want to be my friend and get to know me, you come see me. And that Saturday morning at 8:30, they called me for a visit. And for 3 solid years, this woman, who she finally showed me one day that she had all the police report and everything. She had stalked me. You were stalking me, baby. I know you were. Anyway, so she showed me all this, and I'm like, but she still came. In Texas, she hitting the highway for 3 years. And I was like, hey, I think I love you. And I got to look at the camera. I told my wife, I think I love you. How romantic. Like, I didn't even know I'm in prison. I'm so thrilled. I thought, man, that was the coolest thing in the world, Like, I think I love you. She still teased me about that today. So anyway, so I had somebody that cared for me and believed in me.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you got this police report. You know how much time I got. You work for a law firm. You have to understand. I might not ever come home. And so anyway, so she had a beautiful little daughter named Adriana. As I said, she'll be getting married in September. And so Adriana comes to see me, and she gave me permission to kind of just have fun with her. And at this time, I put on a special relationship, which was gained contact visits. So anyway, so this little girl just wrapped me around her finger, man. I fell in love with this kid. I was writing encouraging letters, trying to, that was before the phones on the wall or any of those things. And I would ride in. We would have so much fun. And when she come see me, she want to ride hobby horse and all those things. And I just fell in love with this kid. But something was happening on the inside. Now, I talked about the external pressure that caused everything on the inside to change. Now, something is happening on the inside that's causing the outside to change. I knew that if I wanted to continue to get contact visits and have fun with this lady, we obviously got married. We just celebrated 16 years of marriage. I'm on it, babe. I love you. Anyway, so this lady I married and this beautiful kid, they grew to love me. And they talked about me one day coming home. Nobody talked to me about coming home. That's off limits. I mean, it's not going to happen. But they did. And I'll never forget the warden said, "Hey, this lady you want to marry, she got a associate degree, a bachelor's degree, master's degree. What do you do? Why should she even want to be with you?" And I was like, thank you, Joe Smith, Warren Joe Smith at the time. And I was like, dude, so man, I'm in SEG now, back to NSEG. And I prayed and I was like, Lord, I'm tired of living like this, man. I was like, if you real, I need you to come show me you real. I got a King James Version Bible. I wrote to a ministry, Be Fruitful and Multiply, 1994. My Bible just turned 30. Let's go. And still have it. Changed the cover about 8 times. But anyway, so I wrote them. They sent me a free Bible. I used to just hold it. Didn't know how to pray. Didn't know how to do those things. No relationship with the Lord. Of course, I knew him, just didn't know him. I knew of him. I'm sorry. And so anyway, so I prayed and I was like, God, I'm not changing translations or any of this. I don't understand nothing in this Bible. But I got 23 hours with you every single day, and I'm going to read this Bible. And if you're real, you'll teach me the Bible. And so again, I'm in SEG. And so I'll never forget the first revelation of a scripture was Proverbs 18:16. A man's gifts making room for him and bringing him before great men. And so I thought, man, I got this vision. I'm going before presidents and governor. I'm going for all these. I'm going to get an opportunity. And so when visitation come, I go in visitation handcuffed because I'm in SEG. They unhandcuffed and I tell my wife, I say, babe, you don't believe this. She's like, what? I said, I got this vision. I'm going before all these powerful, important people. And she just looked at me with the saddest eyes. Not because she didn't think I was going to get out of prison. The myth, most people believe that if you go to segregation in prison in Texas, that you become crazy.
Yeah.
Because you're in this cell all this time, 23 hours a day.
Your mind.
And my wife, she looked at me for the first time with sympathy and was like, this dude is nuts.
Yeah.
Right? But I believed it.
Right.
I just believed it for whatever reason. And so God began to impress on my heart, go to school. Well, I was put in SEG and a woman told me a classification, you're going to be here for at least 5 or 6 years. 11 months later, God is working on me, changing my heart. I accept Lord. I didn't get to accept the Lord in a beautiful chapel or a wonderful mega church. I was in a little bitty 6-by-9 cell, me and God alone, one-on-one. The biggest fight I never won, but I'm grateful that I lost. And I surrendered my life to the Lord. 11 months later, they called me to reclassification. They let me out of administrative segregation. I get out, and I said, God, I said I was going to school. I get into college. It's funny you brought up Thomas Horner, Richard Smith. These were 2 guys. Shout out to Richard Smith. He's home as well. But these are 2 guys that really embraced me and loved on me. And so I hadn't been to college in almost 20 years in any school of learning. But these guys just loved on me and encouraged me, tutored me. And so I got an associate's degree. Then I done Lee College welding. Richard Smith and Thomas Horner, they took me under their wings. I didn't even know how to plug up a welder. They took me under their wings. I graduated. And then I became a shop hand and taught welding for guys in Wyndham and Lee College. So just some wonderful things. And it's looking back, it's so powerful how God brought these relationships together. You know how I met Richard Smith? I was doing a Mike Barber ministry. He would come every year for Christmas to the Wind Unit for 4 days. Shout out to Mike Barber Ministries. And he would allow me to be a part of the setup team for 10 years. He did. And so a friend of mine named Cedric, who was an ex-Crip, who had surrendered his life to the Lord, who was influential and helped draw me to Christ, he told me, say, man, I want you to share your story with somebody. And I was like, ain't no problem, man. I like sharing. This is all, my story, God's glory. Let's go. And he was like, I want to talk you to Richard Smith and just share your story. So I was like, okay. And so I go to him and I was like, hey, man, how can I pray for you? What's up? And so he was like, well, man, I just want you to know, man, I used to be in a hate group and I used to be a captain and I didn't like black people. And I'm like, man, I got set up, man. This is bad. This is bad.
You talking about Smitty?
Smitty.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was like, dude, like I'm thinking in my mind, Cedric, when I see you, man, it's on. I'm going to get you. But so I just shared my story. How I came in, I played baseball, dude. Like white people growing up, I was around more white people than black people in most cases, right? So, but in prison, the culture dictated that I stick to my own kind if I'm keeping it real. And so I became a racist, man. Yeah, I was a racist. Like I heard all of the white man did it, the white man judged, this and that. And we hear all of these things. And if you keep listening to it, it will shape your belief and the way you think. And so that's what it was. So when I gave my life to the Lord, I couldn't be racist no more. But I'm going to tell you something. Whatever we confess to the Lord, God will always put to the test. People say, well, God doesn't tempt. I agree. Temptations are designed to make you fail. God doesn't tempt us, but he tests us every time. He would test us every single time. And so here I was saying I was this Christian. I gained favor with the warden and every program that I had been a part, I completed successfully. And so he allowed me to facilitate all these wonderful programs. I'm walking around the unit talking about I'm a Christian, thinking I'm something. And I was faced with this. What are you going to do now? Are you really a Christian? And so me and Richard Smith prayed that day. And I think what he was looking for, immediately God gave me. And it's funny, for 5 years, I couldn't even get a friend that was black or Hispanic. Every friend that came in my life was white, Thomas Horner, everybody. And it's cool because watch this. If I don't come to a place where I surrender that to God, I probably wouldn't have finished college.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thomas Horner and Richard Smith. If I don't come to a place of surrender and racism, then I probably don't get to finish welding or teach welding or even be in a situation like that.
Yeah.
And so God has this great plan and he's working it out, right? He's working it out. And so I come out of SIG full of steam. And the funny thing I'll tell you about SIG when my wife thought I was crazy, watch God. So I'm leading a class called Life Changes. Shout out to David Valentine, Eddie Harmon, Jerry Harmon. And so I'm leading this class and I'm up to speak. It's about 150, 200 men in a chapel. And God takes me to the scripture. A man's making room for him, leading him before great men. Well, I'm thinking in my mind, man, some judges or senators or something finna come in here. So I got to be on my game when I speak tonight. And so I got up to speak. Nobody came in, nobody other than the guys in white and a couple of officers that was working. So I'm getting ready to speak and I began to weep. And it wasn't an audible voice, but I knew that God was impressing on my heart. A man's gift making room for him and bringing him before great men. Who are the great men? Where are they at? Every man in that white uniform. Every man in this chapel is great. I made everyone in my image. What they done is not who they are. God, the Holy Spirit just began to deal with me. You know what I'm saying? That's a choice I made. That's not who I am. And I began to weep and I shared that with the men. And I was like, God, forgive me. Forgive me all that thinking about this and that. But God is still faithful. But he rewards faithfulness. That's important. So we say we have all these religious vernacular, religious niece, I call it, because we speak this beautiful Christian talk. And so we say God is good all the time, God is good. What does that mean? What does that really mean? If I say God is good all the time, that means that's who he is, not what he does. Because, see, I had to come to a place where I was in the corner of the rec yard crying and praying one day. And I said, God, if I never get an opportunity to go home on the other side of that fence to be with my family, just give me an opportunity to serve you in here. Let me live for you here. Give me the grace that I need. And give me favor, because I like doing Mike Barber every week, every year. I like being facilitating and mentoring in hundreds of men now. Greg, we started the Rec Yard Ministry where we called it Friday Night Lights. And we would go out and we would worship, sing at the top of our lungs, and we would pray, sometimes face down, and we would have a church service. Sometimes 2 or 3 people would come. Sometimes 20 or 30 would come.
It was beautiful when everybody showed up.
Huh? It was beautiful when everybody showed up.
40 inmates in a circle just praising and worshiping.
Huh?
Yeah.
And so we're not going to have to admit that everybody at home is thinking, oh, well, they just go to prison and they lift weights and they eat really good and they become better criminals because they have all this dialogue and all they talk about is how they're going to get out and be a better criminal instead of being rehabilitated. Well, that's not the case. I can say this. In 1995, Kenneth Copeland, all due respect, he made a prophetic word and he said, the greatest revival this world will ever see is coming out of Texas prisons. It's almost 30 years ago, man. But what I now know is it's happening. So I'm not testifying or sharing something with you that I haven't seen. I had an opportunity to be a witness of with my own eyes. We're talking about the disciple Thomas, Jesus. If I don't run my hands, if I don't see them holes, I don't know if I could believe that. Well, I'm talking about what I see.
Yeah.
One of the most guilty pleasures I have, I say guilty pleasure, I'll be riding down the freeway, the sunset is coming up, and I'm seeing all the beauty of God, and I begin to weep because, man, I left behind so many people that's smarter than me, that love their children just as much as I do, want a second chance to be with their wife, their family. Everybody think everybody is a repeat offender and been in 10 or 15 times and won't get it right. But that's not the story for everybody. I talked about the molestation of me. That's just one trauma. But think about the guy that sleep next to me in the cell block who started selling dope at 6, was smoking dope at 10. His mama was a prostitute. His daddy was a dope fiend. He didn't have a chance. So I just justify the choices and everything they make. But we're talking about trauma upon trauma upon trauma. How does he cope? How does he be real? How does he go through all of that? And then at 18, 17, 16 years old, he get a job and be regular for the rest of his life. I don't know. All I'm saying is that there are so many stories that people don't get an opportunity to hear or to experience. I did. I'm sorry.
No, that's.
Well, let me ask you a question though.
Yes,
because what was it in you that you feel like allowed you to have some sort of understanding with the trauma? Like, you seem like you're at a place, like, and again, when you sit with yourself for so long, you realize a lot, but
right.
You are very dialed into the things that you've gone through in your past, and it's really hard. You had to go through it a lot longer than I had to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I still deal with the trauma, right. And I still deal with things in my life that, but how have you been able to shift that trauma or that almost that self-pity that people put on themselves? Because you did it while you were in there. It wasn't, from what I'm hearing, like, that shift started while you were in there. You still didn't know you were going to get out.
Right.
But at some point that shift has to be made. I'm either going to be a victim or I'm going to be a victor. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
You can't be in the middle. And so something in you shifted and said, yeah, I'm in here. I may never get out, but I'm going to choose to live this way.
Right.
What did you do about that trauma that you've mentioned you still have today? It's something that you actively are you have to look in the mirror and check yourself.
Right. For me, it's 3 things I remind myself every day. No matter what I'm going through, no matter what circumstances come, I remember God is for me. That's important to me. That's important to me because the Bible says, the scripture says, if God is for me, who can be against me? Now, I get the opportunity to believe that or not. And if I believe it, then my belief requires a response. And so if I believe it, I have to walk it out and act like that. I believe that whatever happens, if I act out in integrity or walk in integrity, I have to believe that my integrity is going to make a difference in that situation.
Right.
No matter what the outcome, I have to believe. I got fired from a job. And the guy that ran the company, he told one of the other guys, he said, man, I could do him dirty and, man, mess up his money, his wages and everything. And he still don't go off on me and talk bad to me. Well, he should have met me 5 years ago. Then he would have had the same response. But anyway, man, so I have to believe that. The second thing is I always remind grace. We talk about grace. Mm-hmm. We talk about the grace of God. Oh, we can get on TV and we could preach the greatest sermons and we could find the most eloquent definitions of grace. But the reality is God loves me as much as he loved Jesus. That's important to me. It's because of the grace of God that I get to experience everything that I experience. It's because of the grace of God that the judge said I'd never get out of prison. I got 5 set-offs, 15 years worth of set-offs, which means I got denial. And they said, no, you're not going home to your family. I got a 5-year set-off, which is a life sentence to me. Then you got 3-year, 2-year, 2-year, 2 years. So I get all of these set-offs. And I'm like, dude, I remember, man, Mike Barber, he taught me this one thing. He said, every day I want you to say, any day now I'm going home. Well, that sounds good when you're coming up for parole and you had a possibility of going home. But what about when you get a set-off paper in the mail and it say you denied for 5 more years? What's your conversation like now, big boy?
Exactly.
To get on my knees and to pray every single day, I would cry through tears any day now. It was times that the words couldn't even form. I just allowed my heart to share. I mean, it was just tough. It was tough. Cedric went home and I got his parole papers. He had got a FI-1, meaning he was going home to his family, made parole. So all the set-offs I got, what I done is I asked him for those papers before he went home. And I took a pen and I scratched out his name and I put my name and my TDC number. And so when I would have to cry through tears and say, any day now I'm going home, I would read his parole papers with my name, my TDC number. And I believed that. At first I was just being positive, but over time I believed it. So I get a set off. All those set offs, I get the commissioner, everything comes see me, nothing going. And then one day we get locked down. And they call my name and they say, hey, you got a lay-in. Well, on lockdown, you don't get lay-ins for number one. You're on lockdown pretty much, unless you're going to infirmary, you're a chronic patient or something. So I go and get the lay-in and it says I had a parole visit the next day with a commissioner. 2 things. I wasn't eligible for parole at the time. And the commissioner was only obligated to come see you after you served 20 years. And then if you get 3 consecutive set-offs, they have to come see you again. That's law. Anything else, they don't have to. So I'm looking at this lay-in like, dude, well, all 5 times I'd seen parole and been denied, I thought, with my good self going in there with my college paper, all this successfully completed, all this, I'm thinking, I'm knocking it out in these. I'm telling my wife, ain't no way they could deny me, man. I smashed. That interview, I was looking straight. I was carrying myself well, speaking the language. And I got all those denials. And so this time I go in and the commissioner was kind of not into me and seeing like everything I said. She was like, yeah, all right. And I was like, dude. But I remember getting ready to leave that interview and she had on this little bracelet and it had a cross with a Christ saying on it. And I was like, I could at least pray for her. Every time I got a set off, it would take 3-4 months to get an answer just to decide that I'm not going home. I go see them that Wednesday afternoon. That Friday morning, 2 days later, they call me into the office and they say, hey man, you're going home to your family. And I'm like, dude. And as Greg said, this is during COVID, man. So I'm like, dude, what's going on? And so I go through, I finish my little changes class. I'm ready to go. And I'm going to show you how good God is. For the last 12 years, I've successfully completed everything, doing my best to walk out my faith. God had given me favor. I was doing a high security program. We started the first ever AdSeg ministry in Texas history, where we would go to the AdSeg and have church. We do worship, we pray with them, and we'd have a service for them. the people that I lived with. I got an opportunity to go and share the gospel of Jesus Christ with. And in the first year, we watched 150 people renounce gang affiliation, and we watched over 100 men get a life to the Lord right there. And I'm thinking, we started the G5 program down in that cell for 23 hours. The warden was scared to death. He was like, what y'all want to do? What? So we had a day room, and he was like, okay, we'll give you 6. That's it, once a week. And we done that program, the Katie Souza program, Key to Expected End. Shout out to Katie Souza. And anyway, so we done that. And then the first class, they gave us 6. Then the next class, they gave us 10. And then the next class, they gave us 15. And then the next one, we got 20. So we got men that's supposed to be in their cells for 23 hours a day. We got them in a common day room, no handcuffs. They're sitting there worshiping the Lord. Not only did we get once a week, we got 3 classes a week. And so God was doing something through all of this. And so God is faithful, but he rewards faithfulness. God want to see faithfulness in us. We get caught up in perfection. When he want to see perfection, he don't look at you. He look at Jesus. But when he want to see faithfulness, he looks at us. Perfection and faithfulness is not the same thing.
Yeah.
Right?
So good.
Right? Abraham said, he told Abraham, now I know he's about to take out his kid. And the angel of the Lord said, now I know. That's faithfulness. But was Abram perfect? Of course not. Of course not. So anyway, so here, I'm in this situation, and then bam, I make parole. And not only that, watch God, this is during COVID. While everybody else had to catch a bus and go to the Walls unit, another prison unit to wait that you have to sleep over the weekend or night the next day to be released to your family. That wasn't my story. Because of COVID, every time somebody got sick on your block, they would move your date back for 2 weeks. That happened to me 3 times.
Gosh.
I'm a day or 2 from going home to my wife and my family, and they would have to move my date back.
Oh.
Yes. And so finally, it happens again. And every time they move your date back, they'd have to call you out. You go talk to the captain. The captain explain, your parole haven't been taken, but okay. And so we get 5 minutes on the phone call to call our family. At 6 o'clock, I call my wife, May 15, and I say, hey, babe, bad news. I lost my date again. Somebody's sick. It's going to be at least 15 days again. And my wife's like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm calling John Whitmire, whoever. Shout out to John Whitmire, Mayor of Houston now. Anyway, so she called him, and she's like, I'm not trying to hear it. So we only got 5 minutes on the phone. I can't wait I just go back to business as usual. Got to wait 14 more days. Officer comes to the bars at about 9 o'clock, and she says, hey, I'm going to tell you what you've been wanting to hear. And I'm like, okay, I got to go to the captain office. He's going to explain the rules again. You lost your parole, blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, pack your stuff. You going home to your family. And I'm like, not going to play with me. She's like, yeah, you going home to your family. And I was like, dude, okay, when? She said, your wife be in about 45 minutes. So I'm in the back. The good story. I'm in the back. I'm shaving my head, trying to get cute for my wife. It's COVID. Got to wear a mask already. And I shaving my head, my hands shaking. And I cut look, don't laugh at me, please. I cut this much of skin out of my head. I pulled a razor up, it looked like a pork skin was hanging.
And them razors are terrible.
So I go out with a big old bandage on my head and on my face. But anyway, so I walk, but watch God. God, and Ad said he had put it in my heart to start a prison ministry, which my wife and I run now. It's called Brothers Keepers Prison Ministry. Go online, you can check us out. Anyway, and so God placed it in my heart. And so we started that. But anyway, so God wanted to do something different with me. When they called me for parole and my wife came, they had already hooked up a phone line in my house and said I was going to be on a monitor. You've been locked up for 30 years. It's like, okay, whatever. So I get down there and she was like, well, before I go home, she was like, you got any questions? I was like, yeah, I got to be honest. Yeah, I'm a man of integrity. She know me. And I was like, you didn't put the monitor on me. I'm supposed to have a monitor. And she looked at the papers again. She's like, we don't have nothing like that. So this is a Friday. So she was like, okay, when you go to parole, they're going to put that monitor on you. So you and your wife, you better go have fun and do whatever y'all need to do. Because Monday when you go to parole, you're going to have that monitor. It's going to be super intensive and you're not going to be able to go to work, blah, blah, blah. So, okay. So I'm thinking they're going to take me somewhere. Man, God is so faithful. God, when I made parole that morning, I was escorted by a captain at the front doors where the officers and the warden and all the important people come in. I walked out that door. And so all the dormitories, the inside dorms, 3, 7, 6, all those dorms are in the front. And I'll never forget, my wife is on the other side of the gate, her best friend, and my girls, 2 daughters. And so I'm walking out to walk out the last 2 gates. And behind me, everybody is hollering and cheering. And I'm thinking, man, they finna lock them down. Because you're not supposed to holler out the window, you're in the front. I mean, these were the people come in and out. Yeah. But the captain said, you know a lot of people, huh, man? He said, man, I'm happy for you. But he didn't say one word. So I got there, my daughter running to mom's and everything. And just I walk out the front door. I go to parole that Monday. And I tell my parole officer, he said, any more questions? After 4 hours signing all these papers. And he was like, any questions? I was like, yes, sir. I got to be honest. You forgot the monitor, man. He's like, monitor? Who told you a monitor? You ain't on no monitor. And I told him the lady's name, who had my wife, paid her $200 for the landline, get it hooked up and everything. And he called the lady into the office. And he said, did you tell him that? And she was like, well, yeah. Well, he been in, he got a murder case. And of course, he done so much time. I just knew that. He was like, no. And he makes her apologize for being in the office.
Wow.
And he tells her to go and get that monitor out of my house. The light, they got the hook up and all that. Yeah. And it's crazy because if you unhook it and everything, the lights go crazy. Yeah. So I was like, I don't have to get a monitor. He's like, no. So when my wife went home that night, I unplugged it and all the lights going crazy. And I was like, dude, that's too much like the police in here, right? So I put it under the bed. That didn't work. So I wrapped it up in blankets. Nothing could stop these lights. I'm telling you, TDC done a great job. Anyway, and so it was just crazy. So finally they came and got it. And so here, man, I had an 80-year sentence. My judge said I was going to die in prison. After 30 years, I'm released out the front door to my family with no monitor. What now? And which takes me to the last thing. I mean, every single day I live by this. Do what I do as I do it unto the Lord. As everything that I do. Everything that I do, God has been faithful to me. I got a great job, work for a great company. I run a warehouse in Tomahawk, Texas. And the owner and I, man, he's been so good to me. Good story. I never forget, he told me, he said, I never hired an ex-con. I never hired an ex-offender. I'm just being honest with you. And, his belief was that if you get 20 years, you should do 20 years. And if all they give you is bread and water, it's cool because you've done something to get in there. And as he got to know me, man, I got a raise in 6 months. I get a bonus twice a year. He's just so good to me. And I feel like God is really changing him. He has a beautiful family that he loves, but even his family know dogs are more important than human beings to him. It's just the way it is. But I tell him about the ministry and everything that I do, and he is 100% on board and supportive of me. And I'm so grateful for that. And the business I run. So everything that I do, I try to do. I want God to be there. I want to reflect integrity. And I want God to know that again, that integrity can make a difference every single time. The man that hired me got fired and I'm still there. Right. So, I mean, the sense of humor of God. Every Friday, I go cash the company checks from $75,000 to $200,000 every month. Every week. I'm sorry, I get to go cash the check for the little cabinet company I work for. And so these are things God just began. Like I said, the prison ministry that God laid on my heart to do in prison. We kept the exact same name with 501c3, and we go to prisons all over Texas. We do marriage seminars because we believe in family. We believe in family. Next Saturday, we'll be doing a marriage seminar at the Moore unit, which was Darrington unit. And we got 40 couples. And we'll get to take 40 wives in. Wow. And we'll share God with them. Yeah. And we'll have other volunteers that's going in. 8 guys that were on the WIN unit with us. They'll be going in with their wives. And we'll get to pour into them. And we'll get to feed them a beautiful meal. And we want to give them the hope that somebody gave me, man. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I do what I do. Yeah. That's what I do. I mean, this is prison ministry is not something you get paid for. Right. But I knew that God had changed something in me. We're talking about the inside out now. And so now I know what it's like for my external to change who I am internally. But I don't know what it's like for my internal to change the external.
Yeah.
But through God, I believe it is happening. And me and my wife, the men and women who partner with us in ministry, we get to watch it. We get a front row to watch God totally transform a life. We pray for grandma, 99-year-old grandma with cancer. And man, God, we want our family healed. We want them to live forever. How unrealistic that is, I don't know. I'll let you decide. But what I do know is that this is my belief, that a transformed life is the greatest miracle that God could ever put here. It's bigger than cancer. It's bigger than all the diseases that could heal one person, because a transformed life allows the opportunity for a husband to transform his family.
A family.
And that family transform a church. And that church, a community. And that community, a nation. And so now this is bigger than, from Genesis to Revelation, it's all about family. This is God's idea. He took Abram and he said, I'm going to take you and I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing. And because of you and your family and your obedience, you will become a father of nations.
That's right.
So that's where I'm at.
You know, talk about, everything you have, man, you deserve. From your integrity to your faithfulness, it has overflowed. I mean, your cup overflows.
Yeah.
You were talking about the business side of things, Tomahawk Targets. I mean, you run one of my trailers in Houston. I don't let anybody into my fold. And when I remember coming to you and I was saying, hey, I want to, there was one time where I asked you to come and help me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is where the deciding factor was for me. I knew who you already were, because you're considered one of my spiritual fathers. You, Thomas, Richard Smith, all you guys. To Ray, we didn't get to shout out Ray, Pollo. I don't know if you remember Pollo. Remember Pollo?
Yeah.
All those guys, man. They're all spiritual fathers that poured into me. They planted seeds that other men came and watered, right? And I knew who you already were, and so when you came and helped me that one time, and you kind of picked up the gig really quick, and there's been times where I was smoking you and axe throwing, and then now we go at it with each other all the time. Every time we're together, we go at it, and
you won the
last competition. Time. We got to do a rematch, but that one time, man, I knew for a fact that you would be the perfect. I didn't doubt one bit, because of your love for people.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes to be in the service industry, is your love for people. It wasn't just a great time axe throwing. It was more so being ministered to. Yeah. And so that I knew you would be a good fit whenever you made more tips than me that night. And I was like, you know what? This is great. And now, you're running anybody in the Houston area. You want to hire this guy to come out and just melt your face off with the best experience in the world. Yeah. This guy is the guy for you. And everything you have, man, you deserve. I'm so happy to see you thriving out here, from the prison ministry to being a father, being a husband. Every time I think of not taking one day for granted and living with joy, considering it all joy. Yeah. That's one thing that I know you live by. It's consider everything joy. Yeah. And so when I think of a big old joyful guy, I always say, man, just live like Reggie today. Live like Reggie today. Yeah. And so, man, so grateful for you to be here, man. Always good to have somebody that well connected to, and it's always wonderful and a powerful brother.
Yeah. And I just want, before we leave, because we've been trying really hard, and we're really close to getting this podcast on the Pando app. Yeah. Which I know a lot of people who are in prison are going to see this. And I think there's many people who are going to watch this who they don't have that hope right now of like, I'm going home. Yeah. I'm going home. Yeah. I'm going home. That may seem so far away. Yeah. That may be 25 years, and that tunnel, that light, you can't see it. Yeah. So your message to the guys who are gonna see this episode on the Pando app and are just, by the grace of God, happened to watch this episode because they needed to hear this. Yeah. What's your one message? Because you've been there. I mean, and you've managed to have a light in your life and a joy in your life when you could be fully hardened.
Right.
Even being out, you could be hardened, you could live very reserved, you could be very angry and bitter, but that's not what you've chosen. And that's not what you chose when you were in there. There was something that you clung to. So what's your message to the guy who's watching this right now?
Hey man, hope. Greg was talking about joy, man. And my favorite out of all, the joy of the Lord is my strength. And man, I choose joy every single day. And I have to fight for it. Like people have to fight for peace or all these different things. Joy is what I fight for. It doesn't matter what's going on. Sometimes my wife be like, "But don't you even care?" Yeah, I care. But I have a history of God. So God told the Israelites, "Tell your children what I done, how I parted the Red Sea and how I done all these wonderful things." So that when they encounter different situations, they could always look back. So I understand and know what God done in my life, and he'll do it for you. There's no respect of a person. If he do it for me, he'll do it for you. And that's what I hold on to. That's my history with God. This is anything that happens now, no matter how bad it get, it's a small thing compared to what God done in my life. Yeah. And I keep that with me and I drive with that. Greg was talking about the business. I intentionally didn't talk about it for a little while because I could talk forever about it. But this dude takes me to throw axes and I'm like, dude, black people don't throw axes. Keep it real. Black people don't throw axes, man. You serious? And I come to Austin and I go to this event and I'm like a little kid. He teach me how to throw. I'm competitive, so I ain't gonna keep letting you beat me. And so I wanted to learn how to throw and we do the events. And me and my wife went home and my wife's like, "Babe, you gotta do this. I mean, it doesn't matter what it's gonna cost. You got to do it." And I was like, "You think?" And she's like, "Dude, this is so you." And so for Houston, man, the Woodlands, all those areas around there, man, I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do. Nothing like hearing somebody throwing axes, but I want to. I was sharing with Jacob earlier today, had an 89-year-old with her 70-year-old daughter on the trailer throwing axes, sticking it, dude. and those things drive me. I love people. I get to connect with people, the connection. And so my advice to you, men or women that's incarcerated is stay connected. Stay connected. Whether that be connected to, obviously we need to stay connected with the Lord. That's our power source. We have to stay connected. I don't care how good your microwave, your air fryer, or whatever it is. If it's not plugged in, you have no power.
That's right.
So stay connected to God, but also stay connected. Relationships are so important. I talked about my wife, how God used her to be a replication or a reflection of him and his love when I didn't really feel God. I don't know that I would have surrendered to the Lord had not my wife shown me the love of God at a time that I felt I didn't deserve it. I thought God was waiting for me with a baseball bat. Come on, baby.
Yeah.
It's my turn to get my swings off. And that's what I saw. That's how I picture God. I'm just being real.
Yeah.
And so anyway, stay connected. Because this is a relationship that I met in prison.
Yeah, that's amazing.
He gets out before me. He gets exonerated. This man was not guilty. Doing time is hard. I went to prison for something that I done. Sorry. But Greg went to prison for something he didn't do. My heart burns for that. But anyway, I got connected with him in prison. And he thought enough for me to remember me when he wanted to start a business. And I have to correct you. You said that I had an axe throwing trailer in Houston. We have 2 axe throwing trailers in Houston. We expect anyway. And so God is just so good. Stay connected, man. Trust the relationships. Know the people that God placed in your life.
Yep.
The senior warden who believed in me over 10 years ago, we do ministry together. We're connected. We talk, we text, we vibe. Shout out to Vernon Pittman, the best warden ever. Chaplain Page, he's in Atlanta prison system now, but we stay connected. Every time he comes to Texas, we go out to dinner. Over 100 men that I was connected with in prison, were connected on the outside. And men in prison don't believe that. I mean, I understand data and statistics are. When I went to prison in 1990, 6 out of 10 prisons and 6 out of 10 men who got out of prison within 3 years were back in prison. Still a national average. But Texas, so much hope. And for those in Texas, other states, we got love. But in Texas, the recidivism rate is down to like 30% now.
Wow.
Wow.
Texas prisons, you're getting it right. Because they're allowing volunteers to go in, not only share the gospel of Jesus Christ, but true rehabilitation is happening.
That's right. Programs, good programs.
Programs are happening.
Yep.
You have an opportunity to get education. Go to school, man.
Yep.
If you want to do something or be something, start walking to that right now. Don't wait till you get out.
Yep.
Because if you wait to get out,
go back.
Back you go.
That's right.
So that's my encouragement, man. Go for it. Dream out loud. Live it. You know, I got this revelation. You're a king. Okay, I'm going to walk like it. I'm going to talk like it. People thought I was arrogant, overconfident. It's just for the last 5 or 6 years I was in prison, I walked and act like a free man. And that's what I wanted. I wanted that freedom.
So good.
And that's what happened. So God want to release it. And so I encourage you guys, man, men, women, all over the country, Texas, stay connected. Connected first and foremost to God. Into relationships. Have discernment to know the relationships that God put in you. And have joy. No matter what happened, have joy. For the joy of the Lord is my strength.
So good, man. So good. There you have it. Big Hicks. Man, wonderful message, brother. Thank you for being here. Love you, man.
Love you too, man.
Yeah, guys, if you like this this episode of The Get Back, please like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on, share this video. We got plenty more in store for you. Thank you, Reggie. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for having me, man.